Alright, this is a review for Young Justice, Season 2, Episode 15, entitled War. Alright, so the summary for this episode is an intergalactic conqueror comes to Earth with plans to take over the planet for his own. So this was a really interesting episode, and a lot happened this episode. To begin with, we catch up to, the main heroes, Batman, Superman, and Wonder Woman as they're on trial for the crimes that they committed back at the end of season 1. And they admit that, even though that a lot of destruction was caused on their part, that they, were not responsible for, that was, the doing of another entity, obviously being the light, particularly Vandal Savage and his plans. So then in the courtroom, we find out that we hear two Croatans talking about, why the trial's taking so long, like the bribe should have came in. And they're talking about the Reach taking over the world. And then we cut to the Green Lantern talking to the rest of the League about what the Reach is, and that they're intergalactic conquerors, and that they were such a threat that the Corps had to make a treaty with them and had to actively stop them. It's like, all right, you can't take over everything. Like, that the only way that they can take over a planet is to be invited to that planet by the inhabitants of that planet. And John mentions, John Stewart, the Green Lantern, not John Jones, the Martian Manhunter, mentions that due to the treaty that, that no Green Lantern can come back to the planet that's been conquered by the Reach. And so that doesn't bode particularly well for John or Hal. So, or any of the other Earth's Green Lanterns, which so then we cut to the scene in the same courtroom where Vandal Savage is talking to this masked entity about the Reach taking over Earth. And alright, so then after Vandal Savage mentions this to this entity, and so then he exits the courtroom, and it's obvious that he is visibly upset. So then we cut back to Earth, and it turns out that this figure has chosen to take action against the Reach. So he takes this giant planetoid-sized battleship, to Earth, and the Reach intercepts him, and they're like, this is Reach territory. You need to turn back. And he responds over this intercom system. It's like, no, I'm not going to turn back. I'm going to take you guys on. And they're like, oh, crap. And so then we cut to the heroes, particularly Captain Atom, intercepting him. And, saying that this is, they're the representatives of Earth, and that he needs to turn back or desist in what he's doing, and he refuses. And so then we find out through the Green Beetle that we find out that this is Mongul, the entity is Mongul, and that he is an ousted warlord, and that he was ousted from his planet by another warlord, and he figures to get his planet back that he needs to conquer a lot of other worlds. And so he figures that the Reach taking over Earth is really going to negatively affect his plan. So he tells the people of Earth, I'm gonna take his giant planetoid battleship, which is called the War World, which I think in the show they mentioned is about the size of the moon. And he mentioned, I'm going to, destroy the Earth. And he says, that I'll be merciful, like, you'll be happy that I did this for you after you have to experience what the Reach is going to do to you. And so obviously that's a huge issue. So right before he can fire his laser, Dr. Fate comes in and he uses his magic to create a force field to protect the Earth. And then obviously, on top of that, the Justice League, along with the Young Justice, work together to defeat them. And they branch off into their several teams. So you have the Alpha Squad with Superboy and Wonder Girl and Arsenal, and they're going to take on Mongul. And then you have another team which has Impulse, Blue Beetle, and Beast Boy, who are going to find the power source of the War World and take that out. And then you have Bumblebee and her spouse, who are gonna, take on the power source of the War World, and try to intercept that. So eventually, Bumblebee, along with her spouse, ends up successfully taking down the power source, and they end up, rerouting the power of the power core to where Mongul is, because he has psychic control over the War World, and that's how he controls it. And so then, in doing so, they allow Superboy and Wonder Girl and Arsenal to overpower him and take him down, and that allows Jaime, Bart, and Garth to take out the power source. So they end up being victorious in taking down Mongul and neutralizing the threat to Earth. But before they could do that, Mongul did quite a bit of damage, and he ended up, unleashing all of his weapons on the Earth, to the point that, all of the world's governments had to be involved with, anti airstrike stuff, and and that even the Reach had to become involved with their armada just to protect the world from his weapons. And so the thing is that the heroes and the Reach, for a small moment, had to, and the enemy of my enemy is my friend moment. So the heroes obviously end up being victorious over Mongul, and they end up winning the day. But at the end of it, after Jaime retrieves the power source, he ends up turning on all of the heroes, and he ends up essentially capturing most of them. At least it's implied that he captures most of them, except for Arsenal. So Roy definitely doesn't want to get captured again, and so he actually desperately fights Jaime to the point where he opens up an airlock just to suck Jaime out, and he almost ends up sucking out like all the other people, and it's like, I'm not getting captured again. It's like, you guys are gonna fly out in space, but it's like, I'm not getting captured again. And so he ends up at least temporarily escaping. So it's so I don't know what's gonna happen. That I don't know if this is like a brief reprieve and he's gonna end up getting captured later, very quickly the next episode, or if he's gonna manage to actually escape the War World, and and let the other Justice League members know what happened to Jaime, and that Jaime's turned traitor. And hopefully, they'll start putting the pieces together, and they'll find out that, Green Beetle's probably, is obviously also a traitor, and they'll get on top of stuff. So it'll be interesting to see what happens. I mean, and especially with this episode, with the Reach having to get out their armada, I imagine that's probably not going to escape anybody's um, notice, so it'll be interesting how people will react to that, if they'll try to cover it up, comes about. So definitely looking forward to next episode and seeing what comes about this. I mean, because this episode was, really action packed. A lot of stuff happened, so it'll be interesting to see how this affects the upcoming plot. So this has been the review for Young Justice Season 2, Episode 15, entitled War. And I'll see you guys again next time.